I know a lot of times Hollywood sequels and reboots tend to just copy the previous movie, but I'll admit I wasn't expecting a comedy. The Grudge 2020 is directed by Nicholas Pesquet, also starring Andrea Riseborough as the new detective in town that unfortunately her husband previously died of cancer. She's hoping with her son to have a fresh start in town with her partner Damien Bichir, with another detective, and John Cho as starring as a realtor. Now this film, based on the mythology on The Grudge, which is a 2004 film series based on a 2002 Japanese film series, and essentially the entity, the spirit, is created when someone dies, a horrible, tragic, gruesome death that is in so much anguish that the spirit resides in the home that it perished in. Whether the spirit is an adult or child, the spirit will then reside in that house or area of occupancy until someone enters, and then that spirit will then haunt that individual until that person perishes, whether by the spirit or by their own actions. The problem with this movie is it forgets it's a horror movie, and I'm actually kind of astounded by that. It's hard to find a horror movie fail so hard to actually scare, and I don't think it's the actors. I'm going to be 100% clear. I think Andrea Riseborough as the new detective is fine. I think John Cho does a good job with what he's given, especially because his side plot is more interesting than anything else in this movie. His relationship with Betty Gilpin is essentially one of actual loss and of interest, and I was more interested in that side plot in this movie because what this movie does is there is a body uncovered, and then it's an unraveling of the events in this movie. The problem is this movie is very choppy, the pacing's off, just constant repeat of setting up scares that don't work. And unfortunately, its own mythology that it builds in this movie, which, by the way, if you're interested in the spirits that were in the original 2004 The Grudge, you're going to be sadly disappointed because unfortunately they cameo in this film. And honestly, their appearance as well doesn't make that much sense. The movie has a set mythology that it breaks continuously. There are times that characters will see things and other characters will not. Then there are times that everyone can see what is going on. And it's unclear if it's just because the person being affected, if it's all of them being affected, or someone not being affected, because it seems to be whatever it wants to be for this scene at that time. The music is also just not that interesting. The writing is bad. I will be 100% honest. The dialogue that these characters have to say is just terrible. Honestly, there's a moment in this movie where there's a character giving a great impassioned speech that literally is trying to be heartfelt, immediately cut to an unintentional joke, and the entire audience busted out laughing. Not one time in this movie did anyone freak out, gasp, a shriek of terror, nothing along those lines. If you honestly are squeamish of blood, then I can absolutely see it. There's a lot of blood in this movie. This movie is probably going to be one of the worst movies of the year, to be 100% honest, and it's just because the story is so mismatched, the pacing's off, the scares are not there, and honestly, it's just a bore. You're waiting for something to go on, and the more it does, the more of an unintentional comedy it becomes, because once again, it breaks its own logic. There are characters that something happens to them, they're possessed or something, but that doesn't make sense within the mythology. The creature or the spirit essentially is going to be just terrorizing them until they die or they kill themselves, which is fine. It's interesting, and to be fair, this movie spans multiple years, but there are times that literally someone will just perish in the span of a day, and other times that these things will terrorize them for essentially years, and it just doesn't add up why sometimes a character will just perish and other times they will not. There's also, once again, I find this incredibly insulting. If you're going in to see this movie, once again, expecting the spirit, the creatures, again, I dare not say their name because I'm going to butcher them, but from the original 2004 or the original 2002 movie that they're based on, you're going to be sadly disappointed because once again, they're cameos. You're going to see Hannibal I'm not even joking. The villain from the movie Hannibal, which I will insert a picture of, more so than the actual spirit in this movie. I was taken back. As soon as I saw this person, I'm like, wow, that's actually decent of practical effects a little bit. And there's some decent practical effects with the dead body and the set design, stuff like that. But also the camera work is just so poor. It's very standard, very same shot. There's no interesting angles, no interesting takes. If you've seen a horror movie, you've seen this movie. There's nothing interesting, nothing new. The only good thing I can say is Andrea Riseborough is fine. She does okay with what she's given. Same thing with John Chow. And I'll admit, sometimes just the shots are okay. But there's never a moment where it builds tension. There's never a moment where you're going to be scared. There's only unintentional comedy about how people die. There are scenes where someone dies and their body ends up somewhere else, or someone gets injured, but then you're expected, for example, you're expected to wonder why this old woman, who essentially does something to herself, somehow lives for months by herself with this injury. And there's other times where, example, there's a dead body that has to move from one place to another that it just doesn't make sense how that person could have moved. It feels like this movie was maybe tons of reshoots or something along those lines just to make this a movie, to make this consistent. But overall, it's just a mess. It is an absolute mess. If you're hoping this expands the mythology of The Grudge, don't. This movie does nothing. It borrows so much from other movies that essentially it just replicates it. It doesn't add anything. There's moments where the spirits are explaining what happened to a detective who should be also explaining what happened. And also there are moments where if this is an actual crime scene, there should be more cops and more people on standby who then should be experiencing this entity. If you're looking for logic, this movie has none. It is an interesting way to start 2020. I would honestly give this movie a 2 out of 10. The reason why I would give it a 2 out of 10 is quite simple. This movie is at least passable. You can watch this movie and it will kind of make sense, and it is actually feasibly watchable. And I will put my ticket saying I actually watched this damn movie to show it. But 2 out of 10 because at least some of the cinematography, the story, at a basic level makes sense, but it doesn't add anything interesting. There's lots of blood and gore, but even that is not going to satisfy as it's not done in a creative manner. It's something done which you expect, and anytime there was a scare, you can honestly count 3, 2, 1, initiate scare, and it just doesn't have any sort of tension when you know that's gonna be. There's one good moment in this movie, and that's at the end. And unfortunately, Drag Me to Hell did it a lot better. But in any case, guys, that's my review of The Grudge. What do you think? Did you go see this movie? Please don't go see this movie. I'm begging you, don't go see it. Don't support this movie simply because of the fact that it's not worth your time. It's not even good enough for a bad romp at a theater. I would recommend Cats for that. But a 2 out of 10, that's what I rate it. And again, if you somehow see this movie, put down in the comments down below. But this is a warning, do not see it. And also, to my patrons, I'll be putting up a list of new movies which will range from Just Mercy, Underwater, and 1917. Vote in my Patreon poll. But in any case, it's been Greyshot117, and I'll see you all next time. Hopefully for a much, 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 much better movie. But wow, what a way to start 2020 and my new film series, which I will be doing every single week through 2020. See you guys next time. Hello everyone, this is Greyshot. Before I go, I want to give a special shout out to Patreon supporters Josh, Milam, Joey G240, Just Thomas Plays, Spartycus, Rifle, JrChicklis, Pyroshark, Ollie, Ace, GTA, and Jakub Osweight. Thank you all for your incredible support. This has been Greyshot17 and his amazing patrons, and I'll see you all next time.